Welcome to the No Quit Living podcast, where we aim to inspire and motivate people to never give up on themselves or their dreams. We will chat with highly successful people from all walks of life and discuss what motivates and drives them to successfully attack life head on and never give up. Welcome to episode number 81 of the No Quit Living podcast. I'm your host, Christopher J. Worth, and today's theme of the day is purpose. Our quote of the day comes to us from Charles H. Parkhurst. Purpose is what gives life a meaning. I'm extremely humbled and grateful to bring you today's show. As today marks our 81st episode, I can honestly say that I don't think we've ever had a better no-quit story. Our guest is an incredibly strong woman that is taking action and 100% paying it forward by helping others. Her positive and upbeat spirit is impossible to miss and extremely encouraging. I'm so proud to be able to introduce my friend, Marie White. Marie, I'd like to welcome you to the No Quit Living podcast.
Oh, thank you, Chris. I'm so excited to be here.
I appreciate you being here. So the first question we ask everybody is, are you ready to make it happen today?
Yes.
Good stuff, good stuff. So the number one objective of our show is to motivate and inspire listeners to never give up. And you and I were talking offline, and you have quite a no-quit story yourself. So I'd love if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about your story with our audience.
Well, thanks, Chris. I appreciate you giving the opportunity for me to really talk to your audience and just tell them a story that starts out kind of sad, but ends up being pretty awesome and inspirational. And I just want to take that journey with them. 3 years ago, our toddler was abducted. And nothing can prepare you for that. Nothing, no imagination. You as a parent, me as a parent, there are always times where we think, if something like that were to happen, this is what I would do. I would run the streets, I would hunt them down, or I would stop them, or whatever the scenario people are in. And yet when it actually happens, it is nothing like the fantasy. The thoughts that you have run the gamut, and there is no time to break down, and you're not crying. And I watched Saving Private Ryan the other day, and the mother gets the bad news and falls to the floor. And I thought, that's not reality. Reality is when something like this happens, when your child is taken, you are in hyper-focused mode and you are trying to save your child. So it's, who do I call next? Is it the police? Is it the private detective? Do I leave the house? Do I not leave the house? It's a whole whirlwind of emotions. And then in the still of the night is the time when everything comes crashing down.
Wow, that was quite a story. And I know you and I spoke offline before, and we've gotten a chance to get to know each other a little bit. And I don't think anybody can say that they know what you're going through and they've experienced it. But the one thing that was unbelievably amazing during our conversation is what you've done since then. And as you mentioned in your introduction to the story, is a horrific beginning as a good ending in what you're doing about it and how you're making a positive out of it. And I just would like if you could possibly share a little about what you're doing in regards to helping others and paying it forward.
Well, I think, when we began this, we didn't really know, what to do. Our emotions were out of control. We didn't know how to handle the stress. Luckily, we had actually been foster parents for about 8 years. And so we knew what it was like to take in traumatized children. So after a couple of days, it kicked in for us. Oh my gosh, we're in trauma. And our bodies are reacting like the traumatized children we used to take into our home. What do we need to do to keep going forward and to be strong enough to handle the stress of continuing to try to find our child? And then also, when they do come home, because 98% of missing children do come home, how can we be strong enough to bring them home and heal them from what they've been through? If we're broken and shattered, we can't do that. And we have other children, so we have to continue living life. Life does not stop because this happened. So after, a couple of days of that and figuring that we were in trauma, figuring out how to go through that and, going on YouTube and finding what it is we needed to do. Beyond that, after several months, we realized this was not going to be over tomorrow. In the beginning, you're thinking, okay, well, tomorrow the day could be different. Tomorrow our child could come home. And after weeks become months, you realize this may be the new normal. And so that was a realization for us. How are we going to continue to live in this new normal? And into that became, my calling out as a Christian, to God and just saying, Lord, what do you want me to do with this pain and with this time that you've given me? And that's when I started a YouTube channel called Bible Stories for Adults. And at this point has over 500,000 views. That was my foray into taking this pain and changing it to something different. First came the YouTube channel, and then came a book, and then came another book, and then came another book. Right now I'm at 7 books in the last 3 years. And the one I'm the most excited about is called Strength for Parents of Missing Children. And it's to help parents like us as a guidebook that we never had.
Well, life hits you, and a couple things you mentioned I want to just touch on is how your life continues and it goes on. And I think that's the biggest thing that people don't understand that have not experienced something that you've experienced or something even remotely close, is the fact that if something like this happens on a Monday, your life and the world doesn't end, and there's going to be a Tuesday followed by a Wednesday. The best thing about our conversations and the relationship that we've established is the fact is that you have done something with this, and so many people don't, and so many people use the woe is me, and in no way, shape, or form am I saying that anybody is wrong to do that, and it's not my place to say that. But what's absolutely fascinating is the fact that you've gone ahead and created a YouTube channel with over 500,000 views and written a book and then another and another. And I just wanted to make sure our listeners understood that you said 7 books. So I just want to be very clear is I did a show probably 2 or 3 months ago, and someone was talking about the fact that everybody has a book inside them as far as conceptually, but the actual book inside versus actually getting written and then published and then going out to the public is very, very small. So again, just wanted to touch on the fact that you have written 7 books. So if you wouldn't mind telling a little bit about Strength, I think it's an amazing book just based on who it's geared for. And if you wouldn't mind just sharing a bit about that.
Absolutely. Well, it's funny because I can laugh now. That first year, I don't think we laughed a whole lot. And I remember those holidays being really, really tough. But now, we do laugh, and we do have, moments of happiness and of joy. And we're at a good place. We sincerely believe 100% that our child is coming home. And so everything we do is with that end goal in mind, including being the best version of ourselves. And that's really what I encourage people to do. When I wrote Strength for Parents of Missing Children, I thought I was writing it for families like ours that had had a child that was abducted. But as I started doing research into, okay, how was I going to market this after it came out and that sort of thing, I found there were other communities that were going through very similar things as us, and yet they didn't have the same name. They weren't under the category of abduction. You had parents who had been divorced, and one parent was keeping the children from the other parent, sometimes for 20 years. So this was not, other parents are taking their children and moving out of country with them so the other parent can have them. And we're not talking about abusive situations. We're talking about normal people. You and I, we get divorced. I take the kids. I go over to live with my uncle in Colombia, who's a drug lord, and now my kids are being kept in this cartel area. And as the father, you have to go hire a private detective to go find them and bring them back to you.
It's interesting that you touch on some of these topics because they are something that the average person, A, doesn't think about, and B, will never experience. And I think the good and the bad of that is the good perspective is that it doesn't happen to everybody, but the bad is that it does happen to those. And if they don't have a voice, or if they don't have a YouTube channel, or if they don't have somewhere to go, it's very difficult for them to, I don't want to say mourn per se, that's probably not the right word, but it's very difficult for them to continue their lives. So that's the amazing thing that I know about you, is that you've taken this not only for people that have had their child abducted, but you've taken it into different verticals as well, which is so inspiring. So during this tough time, and as you said, the first year you didn't laugh much. If you don't mind sharing with our audience, what was the difference of, let's call it that for better purposes, that mourning period versus then the action period where you went out and you made a decision, you said, okay, I'm going to do something about this. So where did you get the power, the strength to do that?
Well, definitely, from having that relationship with God, I definitely felt like He directed the path on what things I was supposed to do. that was, for me, that's exactly what happened. Everything I did, I went into kicking and screaming. I was like, I'm not doing YouTube. Darn it, I have to learn YouTube. I don't want to write a book. Darn it, I have to write a book. I don't want to. My goodness, so many things have happened. I have a publishing company now where I help people publish their inspirational stories. I mean, so many things have happened that I've gone into kicking and screaming, including social media and, learning new platforms. I didn't want to do any of those things. I just wanted to sit in my house and be by myself and leave me alone world and just wait till my child came home. And yet it could not have been more healthy than to have a new mission to do in the meantime. And as you had my friend Jay Wong on, and he's an amazing podcaster also, just like you. And he said that, people are trying to find a way to move past whatever it is that's happened to them, to move on to whatever their success is. And for us, when our child was abducted, it made us reevaluate what was important. It made us realize that we have a limited time before we die. And I intend to use every single second of it.
I definitely believe that you will. You already have. So here's a question for you: is when you were sitting at home, and as you mentioned, is you just wanted to sit at home and wait for your child to come home. Was there one specific moment where you got up from the couch, or you just jumped up? And I know you talked about doing things, kicking and screaming, but what was that? Or was there that one moment where you just got up and you said, "I'm doing this today, Wednesday morning or Thursday afternoon. I'm getting up and the reason I asked that is because I think so many of our listeners have those obstacles. And again, I'm not in any way saying it's identical to you, but to everybody, their obstacle is the biggest obstacle, and it's the worst thing, and it's the toughest thing, and it's the most challenging thing. So for you, what was that one thing, or was there one moment where you just got up and said, I'm doing something and I'm taking action now?
Absolutely. There absolutely was. And I think that was, as I said, just kind of calling out and saying, what am I supposed to do with this? And then feeling in that moment like the answer was, you're supposed to start a YouTube channel. And going into that, nervous and scared. And would anybody watch it? I'm not telling anybody about it. I'll be obedient and do this, but I'm not telling anybody. And, little by little starting. And every project that someone starts, and all of us have ideas, but every project that someone starts, there's never I'll just get on and do this. It's, I'll get on and do this. Oh, now I have to learn how to edit videos. Oh, now I have to learn how to find images. Oh, now I have to learn how to incorporate music. It's like there's always something more that you have to learn. And I think when you find your purpose, then you realize it's bigger than you. And it's worth making those sacrifices and learning those new things for. And that's, again, what I take people through in pretty much all of my books. I take them through how to find their passion and their purpose, because everyone is designed for something. And if you're just sitting around wandering and you don't know what it is, you have no motivation to go on. And there are people going through exactly what we're going through. There are Facebook groups with over 40,000 families per group. 40,000 people per group. There are over 2 million families in the United States alone who are going through this right now with us. One, there was no resource for them. Two, one parent per day takes their life because they cannot deal anymore with the stress and the fear and just the ultimate pain that you're going through when this happens. And now there is a guidebook that can change their life or save their life. That is important enough for me to get out of my comfort zone and strive to get out to people's, into their hands. When somebody has a purpose like that, they will do whatever it takes to make sure that message gets out. Now it's time for people to figure out what is your purpose, because you don't have to go through what I went through. When you go through anything hard, like you said, it doesn't matter what degree it is, whether it's a divorce, whether it's losing your job, whether it's a move, whether it's a bankruptcy, whatever's happening in your life, that is your major moment. And now it's time to figure out what to do with it.
You mentioned writing 7 books, and I want to go back to something that I mentioned earlier when I was joking a little bit about the fact that you had taken action to write 7 books. For any of our listeners that are maybe thinking about or wanting or internally have a book or two, what is the difference of an idea versus an actual book as far as what would you recommend for our listeners, for any of them that are interested in actually writing a book? What would be the first or second step that you would recommend that they do in regards to an idea as opposed to actually getting started on that idea?
Well, again, that's a great question. You asked the good questions, Chris. So I came prepared for your good questions. Um, the biggest thing you can do is get started. And I know you've seen that in podcasting and you see that in business. The best thing you can do is get started. There are plenty of places if you Google how to write a book or how to start writing a book, that'll give you kind of a 9-step process or something to get started. Everyone, I think it's like 90% of people say they want to write a book, but only, I'm going to get this wrong, but it's like 2% or 10% or whatever of people actually do, which means that it's hard work. And if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. And there are also people that turn out, professionals that'll turn out books that are just them speaking into a microphone. It gets translated, it's a book. And it's not the same level of pride. If you want to write a book, and I do believe that each person has a story inside of them, then the best thing you can do is get started, throw everything down on paper or on the computer. And once you have it down, you just need to start crossing out words until you get to the right ones. And I think that was Mark Twain or someone who said that. It's an incredible process and it's really hard. And 3/4 of the way through it, you're not going to want to do it anymore. I cannot tell you how much every single book, I just want to throw it across the room and say, I'm done. I don't want to see this anymore. But when it's done, there's nothing like it. I mean, it's incredible to have that done. And Jerry Jenkins is my mentor. He's the best-selling author of the Left Behind series. And one thing he likes to quote is saying, I don't like to write, I like to have written. And I think that's the process with anything. Nobody wants to do the hard work, but when it's done, you're proud of it.
It's so interesting that you say that. Bob Berg, who happens to be a very good friend of mine and a mentor, was guest number 1 on our show, and we were talking about writing books, and that was almost verbatim, word for word, what he said. I asked him a question about writing, and he said he does not enjoy the process. He does not writing the book, but he very much likes having written a book. So I definitely can concur, not from my personal experience, but from what other people have shared as well. So here's a different question for you about the YouTube channel, and this is something that I think might intrigue a lot of people, and selfishly, I'm definitely intrigued because we have a YouTube channel that we have not fully launched yet, but a lot of people have YouTube channels and have done different things and get 5, 10, 15, 20, maybe 100 views. And I think 100% of those views are either family, friends, or them just clicking it over and over and over again. A very simple question is, in 30 seconds or less, is what would be your best advice for any of our listeners that are interested in creating an actual YouTube channel?
I would say the first thing you want to do is look for where you have your expertise, your 10,000 hours. Malcolm Gladwell talks about that in his book. Everybody has something they have 10,000 hours in that they're really, really good at and just comes to them naturally. Make a YouTube channel on that and let it be bad and don't say anything. Let it sit there. If people start clicking on it, you've got a winner.
That was 17 seconds, so I appreciate that. Right on, right on. And it's really interesting getting a chance to connect with different people. And I must say, you have such a positive spirit and such an upbeat vibe to you, and it just speaks so much about you and the person you are in the sense of going ahead and doing it. So I guess one question I would ask is, I'm sure you encountered those days when you just didn't want to get out of bed and you didn't want to get up. And if you don't mind me asking, what got you out of bed and what kept you going and what keeps you going each day in and day out?
Well, I would say that becoming the best version of myself, not for myself, but for my child that's gone, is really important. I mean, that it begins with that. It was like, okay, I want to make sure that when they come home, I am mentally and physically able to handle it, because it's not going to be easy. And that can't happen if I've spent all day inside, not getting any sunlight, not getting any exercise, and I'm weak and I'm tired and I'm sitting in a pile of chocolate wrappers. That's not going to work. And really, that's what I encourage families, especially that are going through parental alienation and messy divorces, is what do you want your child to come home to? If 20 years from now, they look you up on Facebook and they come to find you, what are they going to find? Mark Twain said the 2 most important days in a person's life are the day they're born and the day they find out why. You have to search for your why. I don't care where it takes you. At top of mountains, I have been, in this 3 years, I have been to the top of volcanoes in Hawaii. I have been through deserts. I have been in helicopters. I have traveled all over the globe. in search of what is it you have for me next, Lord? Where am I supposed to go? What am I supposed to do? Who am I supposed to reach? And because of that, in doing all of that, I have found my purpose and my why. And now when my child comes home, I will be the strong version that can help take care of them.
Wow, that's some deep words you shared with us. And before we let you go, I wanted to ask if you have any parting words you'd like to leave with our listeners.
Everything that happens to you can be used for something good. I mean, there are people that I look at and I see someone with their child in cancer treatment, and I think, I would rather have my situation than yours. I couldn't imagine looking in my child's eyes and them being too young to understand and yet being hurt constantly by needles and medical treatments trying to help them. I wouldn't trade my pain for your pain. And I think most of us wouldn't do that. All of us are walking around with some kind of pain. And maybe you have a resource, a story, an ability to reach out and help somebody. Look around. You are made for so much more. Go find it.
Wow, that is some pretty great stuff that you share with us on today's episode. And last question is, for those listeners that would like to either connect with you, follow you, or perhaps check out your YouTube channel or get any of your, again, 7 books, not 1, not 2, but 7 books, where's the best way for them to do that?
You can reach me at Marie White, spelled like the color, author.com. That's mariewhiteauthor.com. And my publishing company is Zamiz Press, ZAMIZPRESS.com. And actually, any of your listeners can go onto my website and get a free copy of one of my best-selling books, Changing Your Life in Just 10 Days.
Wow. Well, listen, I cannot thank you enough for not only you sharing your story with us, but also your candor, your advice, and your suggestions. And I just want to, again, commend you for doing what you're doing it how you're doing, and the fact that you are so driven by your purpose, which is helping others and being that positive force in today's world. And as you know, our number one objective is, with all the negativity that's out there, we want to be that place where people come to for motivational, inspirational stories. And I can tell you, your story is remarkable, but you are an even more remarkable person, and I truly appreciate you being with us.
Oh, thank you, Chris. Keep up the good work. Keep up the great guests. I love all the people you have on the show. Thanks so much.
To sum up today's episode and our theme of the day, purpose, Marie has clearly found hers. If she ever decided to give up and just throw in the towel, I don't think anyone could or would ever argue. When it comes to what Marie and her family have been through, they have every reason to hold a grudge. However, that is not what they have done. Marie was clear that there were times and days that were miserable, but she was not going to let that define her. She was going to do something about it by taking action. Fast forward since the incident, now over 3 years ago, and Marie has written 7 books, and her YouTube channel has well over 500,000 views. The best part about her story is that she is not only helping other families that have had children abducted, but she is casting out a much larger net for a much wider audience that needs help, healing, guidance, and a voice. Throughout this whole ordeal, somehow Marie has all been about trying to still become the best version of herself, for herself, her family, and others. In her parting words, she said something incredible. Marie mentioned that everything that happens to you can be used for something good. And we all have our pain, but we should still look to help others in need. So my call to action today is very candid, but I believe well needed. If Marie can continue to help others after all she and her family have been through, can't we? In life, we all encounter obstacles and setbacks that come in all different shapes and sizes. That is a given. But what is not a given is our ability and willingness to be there for others. So I challenge each and every single one of our listeners today to do something for somebody else with zero expectations in return. Pay it forward for all the right reasons and tell no one. And go for your greatness. And lastly, to our listeners, thank you. We truly appreciate your time, and we hope our episodes inspire you to keep on attacking life and never giving up. To quote Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, it's always too early to quit.